Hey, 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 Scrappy people! It's Traci Reed here today, diving right into November's Project Life, and I just have these two 9x12 pages right here, and I'm going to be adhering down all of these photos, so we're gonna fast forward through that because it's boring. I'll come back over here because I do something, oh my gosh, a little less boring, and layer these photos off the edge of this card. So this month I obviously did an entire gratitude journal with tons of journaling and tons of stories. So I don't have a huge amount of story for my project life. I did want to repeat some stories, like the story of Chad and also going to see Frozen in my project life, just because, you know, who knows what's going to happen to that gratitude journal and if it'll ever be kept with this album, etc. So I did want to document a few things that I did in my gratitude journal, but other than that I just have a few photos and a few small stories. I was really impressed with myself. I have that around the table card from Ali Edwards, and I noticed that I have three photos from around the table. One is, I surrounded that around the table card with the three photos, so I'm going to use that card to tell the three different stories of the three different photos of being at the table and how it seems like a lot of life happens around one table or another. I'm kind of just distributing some of the chipboard pieces that I had pulled out. I actually went through and popped off all of the chipboard from my Ali Edwards kits, and now they're just in a big bin, and I'm actually going to start incorporating all of my Ali Edwards stuff into my normal stash because I did unsubscribe from the story kits and the stories by the month kits, mainly because I just felt like this style of documenting was not really conducive to the way that I want to document. I love Ali, I love her products, but it just wasn't working out in the way that was making me happy. So I unsubscribed from them, and I might subscribe to another kit. Leave your suggestions in the comments below. I really love Coco Daisy. Obviously, I'm not going to be abandoning Coco Daisy. I'm on their team, but I'd love to supplement my Coco Daisy stuff with a kit club that is a little bit more everyday, less themey sort of a thing. I love Coco Daisy's themes. They really are fun and fun to incorporate into my scrapbooking, but I'd love to have like a supplementary set of products that are like everyday but not repetitive. That was one of the problems I had with Hip Kit Club and Citrus Twist kits a few years ago, is that like after a few months it felt, especially Citrus Twist, felt repetitive. Like you got the same sort of product and the same sort of patterns every month, and I felt like you know, I already had this product in a different color scheme, so why am I buying it again? I don't know if that's changed in the last few years or not, so if you feel like that's not true anymore, go ahead, you can leave that suggestion in the comments below. I'd really just love some suggestions on some kit clubs that would be fun, and they can be pocket, they can be 12 by 12, it doesn't really matter. I work with it all. Anyway, back to what I'm working on here. I'm starting to do my layering, pulling in stickers too, not just the chipboard. I felt like I had a lot of chipboard going on, but I do like some of the patterns and symmetry I have working through the pages here. So I've got those half circle chipboards, like the one I just picked up. I've got a lot of circles going on, and then I've got some like horizontal rectangular strips too, and I like the repetition of that. I like how it just kind of works all these different shapes across the page. That is one thing about Ali Edwards products, is they're very simple shapes, very linear sort of feeling products, and so you can get a lot of repetition and a lot of symmetry going across the page. Now this is, the majority of what I'm using is Ali Edwards. This is Love card. That just came from my stash. I think it's a Gossamer Blue card. I'm not sure though. It just was one I had in my stash and it matched the color scheme, and that deep mustardy yellow colors, not one that I incorporate into my scrapbooking very often, so I was like, well, I'm definitely going to put this in here because I need to use this card. So I'm kind of looking for a few labels for some of these photos, and I used this arrow label from Coco Daisy for this one of Finn, and then I need a couple more, but I'm just going to slowly incorporate them throughout while I go from card to card. That's kind of how I always work on these pocket pages, is I bounce from card to card as it starts to make sense. You know, I like to put down all of my photos at once, all of my, you know, decorative chipboard at once, all of my labels at once. I just kind of work in a systematic sort of process for pockets, especially, just so that I don't forget things, I think. I love this picture of Chad. He looks like he's winking, and it's different than the ones I included in my gratitude journal, so that worked out well. Just adding in a little journaling about rescuing him from the road. Add in some journaling at the bottom of this card. I haven't incorporated a stair climber photo in a while, so I thought it was about time. It's actually, I'm telling the story on the bottom of this card about how the manager of my gym considers me a regular. He actually, the day that I recorded this video, was talking to me about how I'm a regular, and so I thought that that was an appropriate story to put in my project life. I'm quite amused that I could be considered a regular at any gym, so definitely had to be documented. I don't know why I put a label on this card. I wasn't thinking, and then I go, oh yeah, I'm using that around the table card to tell the story of that photo. So why exactly did I add more label? But whatever, it's not that big of a deal. I kind of oriented my story on the around the table card to be slightly different than what I put on the label itself. Oh man, we went to go see Frozen 2. Hands down, probably my favorite Disney movie ever. Better than the original. I legit cried real tears during that movie. It was so good. So good. If you haven't seen it, even if you're an adult with no children, go see Frozen 2. Well, see Frozen first if you haven't seen Frozen, and then see Frozen 2, because man, that was the best. So I added a 1, 2, and 3 to these photos, and then I'm going to add a 1, 2, and 3 to this around the table card, so they kind of match. I don't really, like, I add in lines on the card, but I don't really match up the journaling itself to like a list style. The journaling still is sort of one cohesive story, but it does still like draw your attention to like, oh hey, this has a 1, 2, and a 3, and this has a 1, 2, and a 3, so this story must be about these photos. So I'm just free drawing the lines. I felt like I could do that, like it wouldn't be that big of a deal. They are a little bit crooked, but that's okay. Okay, so now I have all of my journaling filled in. I fast forwarded, and I felt like I needed just a little something something on these pages. They were a little boring to me. So I'm adding in all of these wood veneer leaves that came in one of the story kits. Kind of like they're falling, cascading throughout the layout. I like that, so I'm going to glue them all down. I'm going to use liquid glue because I was too lazy to bust out anything else, and it works. Just kind of placed them randomly in places that felt like they needed something. I don't normally decorate that little square on the November details, and that actually kind of bugs me. It bugs me that it's always blank, so I put a leaf there. I have these transparent acetate die cuts that I don't really know what I'm going to do with, so I do end up incorporating one here, and I definitely should have stapled it higher. I end up adding to it, adding a title to it, and it goes over my head a little bit, which is annoying, but I could not change it once it was down. I'm going to put one here too, so I can add some titles. Then I'm going to grab some letter stickers for those titles. I really wanted white, but I didn't have any white that had the right letters, so I end up using gray. Boo hiss. But anyway, that is this spread just about done. If you enjoyed this layout, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, you can go ahead and subscribe. I would love to have you. And if you don't already, you can follow me over on Instagram. I am at Traci M. Reed. All right, thank you.